my name is Chalon, and I'm here to help you find your next favorite book and your next favorite author. I am so excited to be here with Cheril N. Clarke, who is an indie author who specializes in grown women fiction. So she shifts between steamy novellas to thought provoking novels that are centered on transformation. So there is a book in her catalog that you will definitely enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Yeah, I would love to know just what first sparked your love for storytelling.
Well, it started a very, very long time ago. I've had a very kind of, I want to say nonlinear, but it's all writing. All I've ever done my entire adult life was write. So it started back in high school, I guess you could say, which was a long time ago. And really that last year trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There were only two things that I really, really loved, and that was music and writing. And through some discussions with some friends of mine who we were close with at the time, they were like, well, just go for writing. And I kind of never looked back. I wrote my first novel at 19. Um, I'm up to like novel 9 now, I think, because I had a big hiatus in between. But even in the hiatus, I was still writing. I was doing executive ghostwriting on the corporate side. So I've just always been interested in telling stories. Honestly, it started with poetry. I was just more so in love with words, the rhythm of words, the power of words, and all of those things. And eventually, it evolved from written poetry to spoken word to I'm going to write a novel to a friend convincing me to do a stage play, and then that turned into 2 stage plays, and that turned into a screenplay, and then it just snowballed. So it's the only thing I can love and do day in and day out, no matter what else is going on. And I've been doing it for over 20 years.
That's amazing. What about words draws you into like wanting to be use them to fuel your creativity?
Because there's so much power in them when you know how to string them together in the right way. When you know how to communicate feelings and emotions through words, they can have so much power for good or for better or worse. They can really, really lift someone up. They can really make someone feel seen, feel loved, feel nurtured, feel tended to, and validated. Or they can tear someone down if you choose to use them in a more negative way. And then when it comes to storytelling, of course, to have a good story, you kind of have to use a little bit of all of it. But it's just, I think they're beautiful. It's in my head. If I don't know if this is a little Rain Man or not, but it's almost like music. I do play with the sound on the page. I'll read stuff out loud if I feel like I'm writing something and the paragraph isn't quite where I want it to be. Then I'll read it out loud, and chances are I'll find where the hiccup is in that paragraph.
Was there an early influence for you as far as like with storytelling or with music that really inspired you like early on?
I would probably say on the creative side, probably Elin Harris back in the day. Love, love, love all of his books. Probably was a bit too young to read them when I first read them, but I loved all of his books. I was a big fan, and he was also just very. I never met him in person, but this was back when you actually wrote letters, and I actually wrote one to him, and I was so beside myself when he wrote back and sent some things, and I was just like, I'm a
Oh,
young
wow.
author, I really want to do this career track, and just a basic fan letter, and I was just beside myself that either him or his assistant, doesn't matter, somebody got back to me and actually sent me some stuff. Um, on the craft, and just was really, really encouraging to really dig into storytelling and telling stories of people who don't usually get their stories told, or not told in a way that's validating and not demeaning.
Yeah. What's your favorite Elin Harris book if you had to pick one?
Um, I'm trying to remember the title. I can remember the color of the cover. It was like partially brown on one side. I don't remember which one that was though.
Mhm.
Not sure if it was Just As I Am, but I do remember the character Basil or Basil.
Yes, yeah.
15 years later, we still remember this character. Piece of work.
Yes,
Um,
definitely. And then you mentioned writing your first novel at 19 and then having a long hiatus where you're still focused in storytelling, but in different ways.
mhm.
So, what brought you back to wanting to write more novels?
I just was getting really, really tired of corporate stuff, as necessary as it might be to pay for things. I
Mm-hmm.
was really missing the creative. Like you can only be creative so much when you have layers of legal and approval and all. No matter what you're doing, you're going to be stifled because there's just things that you can't do, and I found myself more and more saying I want to come back to this. And I've also had a big life change. I also sold everything, packed up everything, and left the country. So a whole lot of transformation and transition was happening with me some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, well, I have to reinvent myself somehow. So I've been kind of coming back to it over the last few years, trying to find my footing, trying to find what do I enjoy writing the most? What lane do I want to be in? Do I need to split this into a few pen names and so on?
Yeah. And what did you decide? Because based on what I saw, like your catalog is just under your one name. So what made you choose to do that as opposed to splitting them off like based on like genres or subgenres?
I didn't, I would probably say when I was younger, I didn't think it through enough. If I could go back in time, I probably would have split it.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
going forward, I'm going to split off the more erotic stuff into a different pen name. I'm not going to hide who it is. It's just going to make it
Mhm.
easier when people search, they know what they're getting.
Mm.
That would be one thing I probably would change if I had a time machine to go back. I would have done that. But I'm going to do it going forward, so it's very, very clear what kind of work you're getting with which author name. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, I would love to chat about your catalog because I did get a chance to read some of your work. So I was able to dabble into the Keyhole Chronicles, and then you were mentioning like selling off your things. That sounds very much like Nyla. Not all of her story,
Yeah.
but that element of it. Can you talk to me a little bit about your inspiration for
Mhm.
her story and then just like the series overall?
Yeah, and Nyla's story in Reservation, that was under my name. That was so interesting to me. That came to me location first. It kind of came to me piecemeal. I had already been to Guatemala 3 times, and here I go again wanting a time machine. If I knew I was going to write a book set there, I would have took a whole lot more videos and, and photos. I did, but it was personal trips.
Hmm.
But I absolutely fell in love with that lake that's mentioned in the book. It's a real place, and all those things. Like I think the inspiration for the character herself literally came from readers. I took a poll one day on my Instagram and I was saying, hey, what occupations do you guys feel are underrepresented? What kind of jobs do you want to see these female leads have that you don't see too often? And a lot of more people responded than I thought. And I kept going through the list, and hotel manager stood out to me. So I kind of made a list of the ones that I thought were cool, and I didn't know anything about hospitality. So once I chose that, I had to do a ton of research. I was lurking on Reddit forums, looking up all kinds of things on TikTok. Once the first draft was done, I actually reached out to some real GMs, just
Mm.
seeing, hey, would you guys mind taking an early peek at this to see what's on point, what may need tweaking from that character's point of view. But the story itself about her and Alex and the conflict, that just came out of my head. Like they're not based on anyone real. Parts of Nyla are I borrowed from my life experience, like going there, falling in love with the lake. All of the texture around that setting is very real. The dogs on the roof. It's like this super beautiful location. It is a World Heritage Site, but it's also next to these rural villages and coffee farms and all of this. And if you're coming from Miami, it is going to be a culture shock. It is, as much as it's beautiful, quite a few things that she ran into, some challenges when she was trying to build her own thing there was what you did at home isn't going to work here, even in the same industry.
Hmm.
So I would say that was partially inspired just from my love of a location. Secondly, from readers saying they wanted to see this particular occupation, like a female lead that's killing it in the hotel industry. And Alex no one likes him. I'm not sure where he came from, but I try I try to give her a good opponent and make him kind of complex. And we'll see more from Alex because he's actually the next book that's coming out next week.
I definitely have some questions about that because I know the series is like centered on like transformation and
Yeah.
like really being able to like come into your own.
Mhm.
Um, and I really appreciate that you center on older than the typical main character, especially as I'm getting older and I'm like understanding like my reading choices. I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily need to read a 22-year-old. Like it's great. There's a place for it, but I love seeing like older people and them still grappling with how they want to live their life and really going after things.
Mhm.
So I definitely appreciate that. Uh,
Mhm.
is I know you mentioned about loving Guatemala and that inspired like the setting. What made it a great location for Nyla to pick up and start the life that she actually wants there?
I think because, well, it was kind of a fluke, which is how I, in my own real life, sometimes end up places. It starts off as one thing, and I end up somewhere else completely. And I thought that would be the most challenging versus putting her somewhere like Costa Rica, where Costa Rica and Guatemala, they look the same. Almost all these Central American countries look the same,
Mhm.
but the infrastructure levels are different. And
Mm.
if I put her in Costa Rica, I feel like it wouldn't have been true to as many struggles because there are a lot of English speakers there. There's infrastructure there. There still would have been challenges with trying to get a business going from scratch, but it may not have been as challenging as if I put her somewhere that's less traveled and
Mhm.
people know less about. But um, yeah, I think that was one of the reasons I put her there. And I also knew that I knew it, so I could draw from my own experience. I've
Mhm.
been to Costa Rica. I've been to Nicaragua. No, not Nicaragua. I've been everywhere but Nicaragua in Central America. But the place that I've been to the most has been Guatemala. So I felt like I knew the city, I knew the rural area, and it would be less research for me because I really was awakened by a marching band at 8 a.m. Like some of those things that happened to her really did happen to me. The rooster, the whole Alex thing. No, that's purely fiction. But the textures I thought would be best if I pulled from my real life experience because I know those. Actually, as a matter of fact, some of those frustrations I went back and rewrote after I visited another time. I was like, this is nuts. I have to put
Mhm.
it in here because who does this at 7 a.m.?
Yes, definitely. And it's also the contrast between being like a tourist and like visiting a place and being like
Yes.
really attracted to its beauty and its culture, but then having, like you said, having to navigate the infrastructure, whether it is like her trying to figure out where her location is going to
Yeah.
be for her hotel versus a hostel. And you may have folks who are born there and very proud to be there who don't necessarily want visitors.
Yeah.
So, for a variety of reasons that are
Yes.
very valid as well. So, I appreciated having that contrast. And then I was doing a lot of Googling of the lake as
Yeah,
well.
and I thought it would be also because this she's from Miami, which is also where I'm from. And that was a strategic choice too of where to set that because I'm in and out of the States a lot. But I'm mostly when I am there, I'm gonna be in Miami. And I also grew up in Miami.
Mhm.
So another city for me, like if I do any in-person events in the future, it's probably gonna be there. Um, but I knew the two very well, and you make a good point. It's also vacationing somewhere and living there are two completely different things.
Mhm.
And the first two times I went to Guatemala were very short trips. The third time, the goal was to stay for like a month, and I wanted to stay a month at that lake. But I only made it 1 week at the lake before I left and went back to the city and did the other
Mhm.
3 weeks in the hotel because I learned very quickly vacationing somewhere and actually settling in are two different things, especially when you need Wi-Fi, you need things to be consistent, you need things to just work.
Mhm.
And it's not to knock on any particular place, but it's out of the way for a reason, which means all the efficiencies that you have may not be there. But if they were, it would be crowded and it wouldn't be so peaceful.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
It's you have to fit into their way of life, not them
absolutely.
trying to fit into
Oh,
your way of life. Uh,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
yes, and that's where she ran into a few issues of trying to
Yeah.
navigate everything. And then I really enjoyed the element in that story where not only is she navigating, trying to figure out a new path forward, but she also is trying to remove herself from that toxic relationship with Alex,
Mhm.
and then potentially some doubts from like family about like, what do you do, why are
Mhm.
you in Guatemala, like what are you doing there, and them not really understanding the vision.
Because he
uh,
looks so perfect on paper. He looks so
yes.
perfect on paper, but how
Mhm,
many relationships do we see that look good on paper or look good on social media? And if you pull back the curtain a little bit, it's not so perfect after all. I mean, no
mhm.
one's relationship is perfect, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Why was that an important feature you wanted to add to her story and that story as well?
For her, and there was one thing I forgot to mention earlier. I actually, this was my first time actually working with a coach a little bit writing,
Mm,
um, because I didn't need developmental editing, but I wanted to write this book in a way that felt like it. Yes, it's a novel, but it's also cinematic, so you could see all of these
mhm,
things happening. And we went through this exercise where I'm usually not the person that plots out the whole book before I write the book, but that really forced me to do that and really think through the character development, the character web, and how all these people are connected, and no one is really completely good and no one is completely bad.
mhm,
And I didn't want Alex to just be a cheater or something we see every day. I
mhm.
didn't want him to. I didn't want. I wanted him to be complicated. People really hate him though. Um, but he's got
For some good reasons.
yes, yes. Yeah, he is so some of those things, like even though I plotted, I mean, I had about 70 things I think bulleted out that had to happen in that story, and I did that
Mhm,
ahead of time. And then a
mhm,
few things kind of just snuck in there as I was writing. And then I just decided to leave it in. There's a scene when he tries to go after her and find her, and things don't go the way he hopes. Like, I don't know, I just he needed to be the bad guy, but in a different kind of way that tied in work also too, because he's not just her
mhm,
lover or ex-fiance, he's also her boss,
mhm.
which made the whole workplace thing a bit crazier. And
Yes.
like we said earlier, these are not 20-year-old characters. These are mid-career folks. They're not just starting out. She knows her value, even though she got herself into this. It took her a while to realize what kind of relationship she was in. She still knew her value, and she still knew that she was capable of doing things with or without him. But it didn't mean it was going to be easy.
Mhm. Yeah, and I appreciated like the balance in that relationship of, like you said, it's like you never really know like what someone is like or how they behave unless like you get like more intimate knowledge of being with them,
Mhm.
as opposed to like some other things that could be more visual as far as like his interactions with her and
Mhm.
her having to like really peel back the layers and understand how she got into the situation, but then also how she potentially could take like her power back and like her
Right.
autonomy back as well.
Because I think a part of it too was me reflecting on my experience in corporate and how there was another version, because we become many women in one lifetime. There was a version of me that used to be very proud that I was working late and I was doing this. And
Mm.
like, I saw a post the other day on Threads where someone said, I can't believe we used to be proud to put hashtag workflow or something, like be proud to be
Or
basically killing
hustle hard or something like
we used to be
that.
so proud to be killing ourselves and doing all these
Mhm.
things, because it symbolized moving up. It symbolized this, and we tie our value to our work and our productivity. And in her case, this is also her lover. This is also her partner.
Mhm.
Um, so it gets a little bit muddied when, sometimes women will say, I want a man who can lead, which, okay, well, how much? And when does his leading become control? And when does it become making too many decisions for you? And how do you handle it if it goes from being a partnership with someone taking the lead versus someone just taking over all the decisions, quietly taking over so many decisions that one day you wake up and realize even the wedding you wanted is not going to be planned the way you want it to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And while she's in Guatemala trying to change up things. So it's like now I want to take all of my power back and I'm going to and I am going to figure out a new path forward after falling in love there, after having an opportunity to visit there. Things don't necessarily go to plan, but then she also meets somebody new
Yeah.
as well.
She does.
With Mariana, what was the inspiration of weaving in Nyla's story and introducing Mariana as a character as well?
I wanted it to definitely be something different. I also want to nod to queer women or women loving women. And when I say something different, not just her falling for another guy, but the
Mhm.
curveball that it being a woman that comes along. And her being okay with exploring that and maybe remembering there was some part of her a long time ago that wanted to explore that anyway and never got to, and now she's free. But um, I also wanted Mariana to be someone who didn't need saving. Nyla, even though she's coming out of what she's coming out of, doesn't necessarily need saving. She may need support, but she doesn't need saving.
Mhm.
And just something refreshing because I didn't want to throw her in with some other guy, especially with what she just went through with Alex. I didn't think it was also realistic for her to be comfortable yet with that trust level after what she went through with him. And something softer, just something more gentle, something with less pressure, something that she wasn't looking for, but found in the midst of rebuilding and recreating her life. She found peace in somewhere that she had no idea because that wasn't what she went there for. um,
Mhm.
and when she wasn't looking is when that peace and that love found her.
Mhm. Yeah, I really appreciate that, and then also Mariana's character, and how she's like very opinionated and has like her viewpoints
Yeah,
on how things should be. But again, like you said, having that softness. So Nyla has like a soft place to land and
yeah,
what that looks like without it feeling restrictive
yeah,
or transactional in a way that potentially it could have felt with Alex, and having like that contrast between who she is in those different relationships.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. What did you want readers to feel after reading Nyla's story?
Empowered. I wanted them to feel like it's not too late. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or 45 or 50 or even older. At any moment, you can change the direction of your life. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you have the agency, you have the power at any moment to say, this isn't working for me anymore. This doesn't feel healthy for me anymore. This doesn't feel like this isn't what I want to be in anymore. I'm not happy, and it's okay to not be happy. It's okay to burn it all down if you have to and start over.
Mhm.
But as we can see in the book, that doesn't mean everything's going to be smooth sailing. It's not going to be a straight line. There will be some speed bumps along the way, some roadblocks along the way, but there'll be some unexpected help along the way. It's just up to you to decide, what do I want this next chapter of my life to look like? Because it's really wide open. If you want to learn something new, you can learn something new. Want to start over in another country, you can do it. Now that's hard, but you can do it.
Mhm.
Career change or go from being an employee to an entrepreneur, or the reverse. Sometimes you get tired of being an entrepreneur and you want to go back to being an employee. There's nothing wrong with either one. I just want people to take away that the choice is yours. Age is just a number. There's something really empowering by taking inventory of your life and saying, "Oh, well, I really love this. I really like that. This part, not so much. How can I make that better?"
Mhm.
And look and kind of see, like, okay, if I want to live this life in a few years or whenever, let me go back and see, well, what are all the steps that I need to take so that's what my life looks like in a few more years? And then just go for it. Research. All the answers that you want already exist. You just have to ask the questions.
Mhm. And also have a little bit of courage and
You need
maybe
courage.
a little audacity as well of like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
change things
yeah,
and
you have to,
yeah.
and just don't feel bad if things don't work out the first time, but the challenges are going to be there. But as long as you, I mean, do research before you go jumping ship, but do
Mhm,
research as much as you can. But if it's something you really, really want and you're able to, and you're not jeopardizing any dependence or anything like that, then go for it.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. And then you've mentioned about Alex having a story, and in my head, I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, how is it possible to
Well,
have a redemption arc of sorts for him? Can you
he's
tell me a little bit more about what to expect in Hard to Hold?
yeah, because all right, that wasn't the plan.
Mhm.
Actually, this being a series wasn't the plan. Nyla's book was supposed to be it.
Mm,
And then I wrote another title. I don't know if you saw that one, Before I Am Erased. It's a completely
mhm,
different lead. And the lead in that book happens to be Alex's mom.
mm.
So it's really her story. But you find out, I think, by the end of chapter 2 or so that, oh, this is how these two books are connected.
Gotcha.
And you realize that even with his own mother, he had an estranged relationship. They hadn't spoken for years.
Mm,
And it's like I said, it's her story, so it doesn't revolve around him, but he's in there. There's pieces of him in there. And as you get through it, you start to realize why he is the way that he is. What happened to young Alex to make him this controlling person he is today?
mhm.
And Nyla has a cameo in that book, and his face kind of crumbles. He doesn't say anything.
Okay.
He can't do anything but just sit there and see
Mhm,
her moving on
mhm.
without him. And it was when I wrote that scene that I was like, well, what's old Alex up to now? And what happens when you look up from the bottom and you realize all this mess around is because of me?
Mm,
And what kind of man am I that I allow things to get this way? So that's kind of where that inspo came from. So when you meet Alex in his book Hard to Hold, um, he's got some signs that he's not quite right. He's still recovering from the damage of that. His body's not the same. He's not thinking the same. He's very self-critical because he knows what he did and he's not asking
mm,
for forgiveness. He knows that that's a wrap. But he still has a hotel to run. He still has staff. He still has all these other people. And I will tell you that he wasn't the only bad guy in Reservation Under My Name. There was
mhm.
Marco.
Yes, yes.
So him and Marco have some things that they need to sort out in his book. And because they both had a role in Nyla's treatment. And so
Mhm.
we will see some of the staff come back. Marco will be back. Anna will be back. Clive, all the whole hotel staff will still be back.
Okay.
The whole hotel crew will be back. You kind of chapter 1 just starts with him going on his first solo trip that he's been on in a while, and it's really he's depressed.
Mhm,
He's like, oh, this my life is in shambles, and how do I put these pieces back together? And that's how we meet him in that book, and we will see that things have to come to a head with him and Marco and the Jeffrey Hotel, and because there were a lot of unsaid things I couldn't say in Reservation Under My Name because it's written in first person. So everything had
mm,
to be through
mhm,
Nyla's point of view. So no one else, everything was through her lens. None of them could say, unless it was in direct dialogue, what was going on.
mhm.
Um, so now we'll get to see what that confrontation between him and Marco looks like. And who's blaming whom for what and what happens at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in that because it also makes you think of like, can someone change their behavior? Like they could acknowledge that they did something wrong, but can they actually change? So I'm interested to see how he
He's
changes.
trying.
Yes.
He's trying. He's trying and failing and trying.
Yes.
But I wanted to give him a chance.
Mhm.
It was just simply because of how that scene in Before I Am Erased came to be. I was like, well, at this point, the next character people may want to hear from is actually him after you see him really seeing, oh, Nyla is really okay without me. Okay. She is thriving without me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see that because I do like folks who can have some sort of redemption, especially if they're like acknowledging their past bad behavior. So I'm interested to see what pushes him to acknowledge things in a way where he actually wants to shift and change.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's coming out. That's coming in a few days, actually. So I hope he can, I hope we'll see what you think.
Yes. Yes, definitely. How do you want folks to feel if they've followed Nyla's story, then they get a chance to meet his mother, Makeda, and then you get to his story? How do you think folks will feel after finishing the series as it is so far?
um, I don't think they'll magically like him. Some might. But I hope people will acknowledge humanity. And all jokes aside, we all have some things that we wish we could have done over.
Mhm,
Everybody's got a few bones in their closet somewhere, and everybody is both the hero and the villain of someone else's story.
mhm,
So even like in his story, there's a moment where he catches himself being a jerk again, and then he acknowledges, oh, why is it easier for me to do that than look in the mirror? So he's trying to
mhm,
get it together, y'all.
mhm.
Um, but I really want people to not broad brush anybody in real life, because depending on how bad they are, I mean, some people you just gotta let go. But for the most part, the entire spectrum of emotion and actions and stuff like that, we all wish we had a day that we could do over, I think. We all
Mhm.
wish we had some maybe words that we said that we wish we could have rephrased at some point. And that just give people, if you think they deserve it, some grace. And maybe you don't. Maybe you see it and you're like, well, good for him. But I mean, some people hold grudges. Some people have grudges since
Yeah.
second grade, so but I hope that people can take away that we're all in the process of becoming a better version of ourselves, hopefully.
Mhm.
And if someone is striving towards that, then hopefully they can reach it. And you hope, because I don't want people to want him to stay bad. I would hope that you would hope that whoever is the next woman he runs into gets a better version of him, and that no other woman has to deal with that version that you met in Reservation Under My Name.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to read. I am definitely going to remain open to him and his changes. I'm really interested to see how things shift for him, definitely. And also to be back at the Jeffrey Hotel. I just thought that was just an interesting setting. I don't often see hotels, like the behind the scenes of hotels
Yeah.
in books. So that was also an interesting workplace to have to navigate from
That was fun to
residential.
research. That was fun to dig into, because neither had I until I don't know how many TikToks I watched, and I was lurking, like I said, on some Reddit forums where it was like day in the life of a hotel or hotel hell, or just all of these things. And then later in the process, I really did. I think about maybe 3 or 4 real life GMs read the story. I just asked for help, and I said, if anybody, does anybody happen to know one? And a few people say, yeah, I'll read it early. And like, I only had to make a few little tweaks.
Okay.
I think for like when I mentioned the celebrity or something, I don't remember now, it was like last year, but I made a few tweaks. But for the most part, they were like, no, it was pretty spot on. I can tell you did your research here.
That's
Um,
good. Yeah.
yeah, it was just the celebrity part. I think this one guy who was really nice was like, just when we have a really really high profile person, we do it more like this. But you got the
Mm.
kitchen part right, you got the bananas everywhere right. There is a room that always smelled like bleach, or whatever, and the like the commercial laundry room, or all these other places, all these little nooks and crannies that us as the guests never really get to see.
Mhm.
So yeah, the Jeffrey Hotel is a character in itself, especially in his book. There's some crazy stuff in there.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. I would love to shift a little bit to your Deep Pleasure series.
Okay.
I did read that one as well.
Okay.
And there's just so much tension and yearning in that that series.
Yes.
It also has like I thought it also had like a great balance of just like reflecting on like what you want, like what do you
Mhm.
actually want, and like how do you move in that direction in a different way than Nyla is experiencing, of course.
Yeah.
But I would love to know what was your inspiration for that series?
That one came from, well, that character already existed. Angela already existed.
Mhm,
She was from a Halloween series that I did before that was just for fun. And I didn't really think anything of it. But then I noticed that it kept going, people kept buying it all year round, even though it was a Halloween story. So I
mhm,
was like, and I know it's erotic, so of course that sells more usually. But I wanted to I didn't want to write the same way. I wanted to keep her, but I didn't want to write the same kind of stories because the Halloween stories were really just me in and out, having fun,
mhm,
not nearly as much plot as any. It was just a good time. And I said, well, I
mhm,
want to bring her back because all my characters kind of grow as I grow.
mhm,
And I wanted to slow it down because I didn't want to do any more lifestyle parties. I didn't want to do any whatever else I made up in kinky cabins. I wanted to really, really slow it down, focus on actual deep pleasure, focus on attention to and honoring our female bodies, and really exploring how soft things can be, how slow things can be when you're not chasing an orgasm, when you don't have this goal all the time. We got to get this, we got to get that. What
mhm,
happens if pleasure itself is what you want and you're not racing toward the end?
mhm,
Um, and I was also in real life just highly always fascinated with tantra, with pleasure, with sensuality. That's just been there. I can write that kind of stuff in my sleep. Massage, just living a life of decadence and pleasure and really honoring the body and not feeling ashamed, not feeling
mhm,
guilty for wanting to experience certain things. So I just said, well, I'm going to take this character, start a whole new series with her. I hope it works. Bring her back and try a different direction to see how it goes
mhm.
with focusing that to your point on looking, well, what do I actually want? Yeah, different than Nyla. What do I actually want from my body? What do I want to feel? And how can I get to know my own body better as a mature woman?
Yeah, and then Angela also has to grapple with wondering if like her friends will understand like what she's doing and why she's doing that. So I thought that was definitely an interesting touch to
Mhm.
go like a little bit deeper into her and what she's interested in and like being willing to explore anyway. And
Yeah.
it's like I'll catch some up later. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see how things go.
because I think that these experiences do happen. They do happen. There are some circles of Black women and well, all women, but I'll speak for us for a little bit but they're kind of just because of the content that's usually censored on social media. You can't really talk about it, but the conversations do happen. The tantra circles do exist. The character Fetlin is not, she's like an amalgamation of like several women that I have met and plus my own imagination. And I was like, oh, this is like a whole journey that you can take people on. And the reason she kind of Angela hid it from her friends is because there's money involved at first, and people are always a little bit embarrassed for that. But I think there's a line where she throws out, well, if I was paying a personal trainer or something like that, then you wouldn't question it. So it
Mhm,
people can have really weird views when it comes to that. But I think there's value in it, and I just wanted to push the boundary and see what would happen if I turn it into books.
mhm. What was the thought process with pairing Angela and Fetlin and that is shifting from a more professional relationship of someone who's like coaching her through pleasure and understanding to deepening it into more of a romantic relationship?
I think I was thinking that that's a very delicate line to keep. And I know most people who provide that service probably are very strict and try their best to never blur that line. I
Mhm.
want same thing with like if you're talking to a therapist, that's you highly should not date your therapist, but it may happen. But in this case, this is intimacy work, and I think that I made Fetlin so rigid and she's compartmentalized all these different parts of her life that, well, what if we just throw someone in there that um, makes you break your own rules?
Mhm.
And no matter how you try to fight, um, it's already hard because this is a very, very intimate space. It's literally physically intimate touch, conversation and all of these things. And
Mhm.
if you happen to be also highly attracted to that person, even the strongest will might waver a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I wanted to put a little pressure there and see what happens and see what happens with them.
Yeah, I thought Fetlin was just such an interesting character. Like you mentioned, being very compartmentalized with like, this is what I do for work versus like having that barrier for her personal life. But then in her personal life, being pretty fluid and not wanting to be contained. I thought, I
She's
thought
a
that
good
was
character.
very interesting. It's like I'm very rigid here, but then not here, and like wanting to have that freedom to
Yeah.
explore. And I would love to know what made you think of like creating her character in that way.
I think it's because she's rigid when it excuse me with the clients because things can get really really messy, and I
Mm-hmm.
think there's even a line in there where she says, you know, one of the reasons why I don't ever mess with clients is because they'll always forget our origin story. They'll forget how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's the kind of person who, I guess, she doesn't really throw out any labels like polyamorous, but she's
Mm-hmm.
clearly open and fluid and doesn't want to be locked down in a traditional monogamous relationship, but that relationship should be anybody but her clients. Because
Mm-hmm.
maybe she's had an experience before where someone just fell too deeply in love with her and then they want her to stop doing the very thing
Mm-hmm.
how they met her. And she's like, no, you knew I just it's like falling in love with a stripper and telling her to stop stripping. You met me doing this. So no, I'm not going to change for you. So she's been burned by that before, probably didn't explicitly mention it in the book, but I think alluded to the reason she had those 3 or 4 rules was because it never ends well. To her experience at all up until now, it never ends well. And it's just better to have that line of "I see you at this appointment time," and that's it. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, there's always someone who is like, "Well, I kind of want to see you outside of that. I like you.
Right, right.
Stay."
And yes. And then this is like a random moment, but I thought it was so funny when Angela was like on the not date and then Fetlin sees her from like from across the way and is like grappling with her feelings there
Yes.
of like, well, you said we could be open, but then you're
Yeah.
feeling very unsettled
Yes.
by
Yeah.
the openness being out in the open.
Yeah, because things always sound very good in theory until you put them to the test. And I think, um, it's just a natural human emotion. There's some emotions that are going to pop up whether we want them to or not. As much you can intellectualize things as much as you want. It makes perfect sense. But maybe when I actually see it with my own eyes, maybe it hurt a little bit. Doesn't mean I won't get over it, or whatever. But there that was kind of like saying we need more rules. So if we're gonna do this, we have to communicate a lot more. We need to know what are the rules, what are the boundaries, what do we do, if we happen to be in the same public space, what do we do so neither one of us are uncomfortable. And they hadn't. It took that for them to realize they hadn't discussed that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that I have met in any kind of non-traditional kind of setup has confirmed you are going to communicate way more in that kind of setup than a traditional 2-person one,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just more feelings involved. Um, and that's actually a good thing if you do it. So you're not just guessing, but that's what happens when you don't.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then there had to be a lot of conversation afterwards
Yes.
to,
Like, okay. Yeah.
yes, to figure things out. Uh, I would love to just talk a little bit about just like your catalog holistically, because you do have more transformational fiction, and then you also have some erotic titles. What do you think is consistent about like your approach, even if you're shifting between different subgenres?
Even if I'm shifting, the woman deciding what it is she wants,
Mhm.
actually being forced, if she's not already doing it. No, not being forced because she has agency. She has to decide this is what I want, and I'm going to do what I have to do to have this kind of life. So whether it's erotic and Angela wanting to be more in tune with herself, have different experience, then she has to make this choice. I'm going to do this even if my friends think I'm crazy.
Mhm.
With Nyla just wanting to be free of someone who has control of her freaking bank accounts. I don't want that anymore.
Mhm.
And I thought this hotel was, I thought we were building something together here, but clearly if you can lock me out and disable my key card or whatever, then that's not the
Mhm.
case. But I still know that I'm a boss in hospitality, so I'm going to go build my own thing over here. So just deciding that this is what I want. I have to work through some things to strengthen myself or maybe show some resilience to get there. There's going to be some obstacles. Um, but ultimately, that's the direction I've decided I want to go in, and nothing's going to stop me until I get there.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely enjoy that, especially since it is like older than the typical like 20 something
I
main
can't relate. Like I
character.
can't relate. I couldn't write a college story right now if I wanted to. I don't. That was a long time ago. And not that, I mean,
Yes.
yeah, it's just that it's not in line with where I am mentally either. I need, that's why I don't personally care for miscommunication tropes. I don't, these are not things I don't want to have. Like I want mature adults who know how to communicate, but they still find themselves in a jam or up against an emotional wall.
Hmm. Yeah. Why do you think it's important to also showcase them having that transformation or being able to evolve, even if maybe they've been living their life 45 years one way, and then, maybe they come to a decision point? Why do you think it's important to focus stories there?
I think we might all hit that point at some point in our lives. We may all question, like, do I really want to do this anymore? Do I really want to live here anymore? Do I? Is there something that I always said I wanted to do, and my knees, I got to do it now, or I can't, or something? Is there something that I should do now while I have this vitality, and I don't want to keep putting things off until retirement? Is there something? Um, Important to me that I've delayed long enough and I don't
Mhm.
want to delay anymore. And I think we may all think about that in some way, whether it's career, whether it's love or travel or adventure. Um, and I want to encourage that because I feel like you should at least explore it a little bit so that you don't get to the end and say, I wish I would have.
Mhm.
I mean, because you can always start over again. You can, even if you make some mistakes, you can always pick up the pieces, but it's better than getting further along and saying, man, I wish I should have. Because now, I mean, maybe we're at the midpoint of our lives where we have a little bit more paper than we did when we were younger, or maybe the kids are older and everybody's situation is different. But I think it's a good time to evaluate and make sure you're getting the most out of your life that you can, that you specifically want. Not what your husband told you, not what your wife told you, not what your parents told you. What are your dreams? And you should get a taste of them while you can.
Yeah. And also there's not any point where you have to stay stuck into something. Like at any
Absolutely
point, if it's not feeling like that's the direction you want to head in, if you want to switch, like you can definitely do that. Like maybe you'll also want to pick up and move to Guatemala, or
not.
or explore pleasure, like Angela, or there's a variety of things that you could do, and it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm at this age, I've been stuck into something for so long that I guess I should just stay here either.
No, I mean, it can be something little. It doesn't even have to be a big dramatic thing. You want to go scuba diving, then go scuba diving. You want to go to I don't know, Kenya, go. You want to explore Brazil, go. You want to take up salsa dancing, then try it. Just don't assume that you have forever because you want to enjoy yourself now as much as you can.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As you're thinking of the stories that you create and the stories that you may want to create in the future, what draws you to, like, you may get an inspiration for an idea, but what draws you into, like, yes, this is one that I want to explore?
Um, I usually start with character first, so I have these probably totally too long character sketches. I'll start drafting, okay, who is she? Where's she from? All this kind of stuff. What are her quirks? What are her hobbies? And what was the moment? I'll try to think of defining moments in a character's life. So it kind of all still goes together. Like I have to really, really fall in love with a character that I create and then run with a story. And I'll
Mhm,
just pick a location and an occupation and run from there. But it's really about creating the kind of women that I think are fascinating, either through their resilience or through their courage or just through, they might be a little out there for some people, but that's what makes them not boring. That's
mhm.
like I feel like if I could sit down with a real life Fetland, I'd have a million questions for her. Like,
Yeah,
and even
definitely.
though we learned about her history in deeper this time, there's still a bunch more. Like, how did we end up here? I would love
Mhm,
to talk to. So I kind of want to create the kind of women that if they were real, people would want to talk to them about their journey.
mhm. Definitely. And then how do you know when those characters, when the story is finished and you're like, I'm stopping at this point?
Um, hmm. That can be tough for me sometimes because I have to catch myself from stopping too soon. So some people have the problem where they write 100,000 words. That's not mine. Um, I kind of tap out at around 65, 70,000 words, a couple hundred pages. But when is it done? It's done when so the character will have almost got what they want. Like they're almost there, and then something else went wrong. And then they have one more final battle, and then they either get or don't get what they want. And that's when I know it's done. So
Mhm,
it's kind of that part is I would say I am kind of structured about. So like with Nyla's story, I don't recall it. Oh, I wouldn't say it anyway if I did. But there's like she's almost there, and
mhm,
then I something has to happen, and then we have to see is she gonna get out of this or not. And
mhm,
once that decision is made, then the story's over. Because then at that point, you're just dragging it out. Yeah,
mhm,
you're just
mhm,
dragging it out. So there is a distinct final battle um, for the women's fiction titles where that may not be as heavy in the erotic stuff because it's a good
mhm,
time. But if it's not an erotic piece, there's definitely going to be some sort of final battle that determines whether this character gets what he or she wants or not.
mhm. Are
Yeah.
there any characters that you would like to revisit, like extend their story, at all?
Actually, Nyla's sister. There's a
Mm.
little part of me, Kendra, the attorney, I keep saying I want to bring her back. I don't
Mhm,
know what I would do with her, but there's a part of me, she has a cameo in, it's so small, it's like a little Easter egg. Most people won't catch it, but she has a cameo in Before I Am Erased too.
okay. Mhm,
It's just a quick walk on where I forgot where they are, but probably only if people are reading the books literally right after each other, they'll catch that. Oh, that's Kendra from this book because I didn't make it a big deal. But
mhm,
I liked her. I liked the support that she provided for Nyla. I liked how real she was when she was like, um, I would help you financially, but I can't.
mhm,
This condo or wherever she lives is taking up all my money. Like, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not there yet.
mhm,
So I think there's something there, and maybe one of the friends in Before I Am Erased.Maybe I'm not sure because they were a colorful bunch. There was the lead character, Alex's mom, and then she had three friends. They're like the Ethiopian version of the Golden Girls.
mhm.
So probably the one with the henna tattoos on her feet because I just feel like she got a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like she could have quite an interesting life story to still be like that at almost 70.
That's cool. If you overheard a reader, like, just raving about your work and, like, really loved it, what 3 words would you want to hear?
That is a fabulous question. That they feel seen. Oh wait, no, sorry, you said 3 words. Courageous. Wait, I'm sorry. Say that question again. It was
Sure.
too
If
good. It threw me
you
off.
overheard a reader raving about your work, what
Mhm.
3 words would you want to hear?
Um, real, real/honest, courageous, and probably sexy, depending on what it was. Like this was just this hot.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
The even in Nyla's story, there is definitely the steam element. It's definitely different than Angela's situation, but
yeah,
definitely that tension between characters,
yeah,
and that pull, like that chemistry definitely
yeah.
comes off of the page, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've done the stories where they just jump right into it, and now I'm really, really more embracing the build up because a lot of seduction is in all the moments leading up to the act.
Mhm.
It's in those I want to touch, but I'm nervous, or I'm doing this, or I put so much thought into bringing you specifically to this specific place because I knew it would blow your mind,
Mhm.
or stuff like that. So yeah, the build up, the tension, a lot of almosts before we actually get to it. A lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say is your favorite book in your catalog?
Um, right now, I think it's actually Reservation Under My Name. I love Nyla. I really do. I think her story's complete, so I wouldn't force another one with her.
Mhm.
Not a full one. I don't think so, at least, but I really do love that story quite a bit. It was very challenging for me to write Alex's character and bring her through that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I would say hers. And then there's a spin-off story from Mariana's point of view, What the Mountains Remember, where
Mhm.
you kind of see a little bit from her point of view. So Nyla
Mhm.
comes back a little bit in that, but
Yeah,
that one, Reservation Under My Name, is my favorite.
gotcha. Would you say, like, if someone's a new reader trying to get into your work, that that would be a good place to start?
Yeah, I love that one.
Gotcha.
I mean, I have another one. I was experimenting with time travel. Trip, I still like Trip, but the lead character in that people either love or dislike,
Mm.
Trish. So, um, but with Nyla, I have a special affinity for her, so I would say start there, especially if you want to read a story about a woman really being resilient in the face of all odds.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Is there a book in your catalog that you think doesn't get enough love that you think it should?
Um, I would say I'm trying to think. No, it's not in here. It would probably be one of the shorts, one of the novellas I wrote. It's called Whiskey Dungeon.
Mm.
It's it's short, it's cute. It's there's still some challenge in there, but I was experimenting myself with that. That was my first time writing a female lead and a trans person that she falls for.
Mhm.
So probably that one because the human emotions are universal. They are
Mhm.
we all feel the same things no matter what gender you are or what your sexual orientation is. So probably Whiskey Dungeon. It's a quick read. You have Morgan, who's excuse me, the lead character, and she's dealing with some grief and some other things. And along the way, she meets this guy, and it goes snowballs from there.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
he's
I
honest.
definitely have to add that to my list then.
Yeah,
So
he's honest. He's upfront. There's no hiding that
yes.
there was a transition or whatever. But I
Mhm.
think Whiskey Dungeon is a nice quick read.
Okay. That's good to know. I definitely
Yeah.
have to read that one. Are there any genres or tropes that you would love to explore in future stories?
Hmm. Probably more small town stuff.
Mm.
I think I would like to try. Yeah, some stuff spent in small town, or maybe not necessarily why choose, but I think yeah, small town settings. I would like
Mhm.
to explore some stuff there. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I love a small town, especially if you can like peek into different people's houses, like as you go through
And I
as
mean,
you go through
I
different
guess
books.
the lake in there was kind of a small town vibe, but not
Yeah.
completely. But I
Mhm.
would do, instead of splitting it between Miami and there, probably have a whole thing focused in some small
Mhm.
town.
That would
Um,
be cool.
yeah.
Yeah. What excites you most about where your writing journey is headed?
Um, that I think I finally have a clear picture on what I'm doing going forward. I'm definitely going to split off into some pen names, but it'll be really easy to figure out who it's just either going to be C.N. Clarke or C. Nicole or some variation of my name.
Mm. Mhm.
So I think that, and I have a lot more time now than I did before. So it's easy for me to just really, I won't say easy, but I have the time to crank out a lot of stuff. There still might be a lead time. Like I have two books that are already written. Alex's story was done back in November. I just was sitting on it.
Mm.
But I have, and I went to this writers conference last year that really made me push myself and challenge some of my own limiting beliefs. Cause I used to be like, I can't write a book in a month. I need like six, until I had to go through all these writing exercises with zero distractions, just me, the laptop, and a timer, and
Mm.
just go. And I was like, oh, I really wrote 15 pages today. Yes, I can write a book in a month if I'm focused, if I
Yeah.
have the good discipline, which I have now. I think I get up at 5 o'clock in that first window. And I proved to myself earlier this year that I can write at least close to a full novel. Yes, I can do it in a month, and it not cut,
Oh.
not like cheat the complexity and not just skirt through things and still have complex characters, a good storyline. That doesn't mean it's going to go straight out to readers. But at least I got it done.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm excited about being able to be a bit more prolific with my publishing schedule, putting more things out and having a clearer brand distinction,
Mhm.
and hopefully to find more of the women who are looking for stories with women that represent their position in life right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm excited to see what else you'll have coming through in the pipeline. And how can readers support you? What would be the best way they can to support you?
Right now, almost all of my titles are in Kindle Unlimited.
Mhm.
So you can find them there. The shop on my site is not functional yet. Like, it's kind of in between. I wanted to sign books, but that's very, very hard. I can't do it anymore because I'm not primarily in the US.
Mm. Mhm.
So Amazon is happens to be the easiest way for most people if they want ebooks. As far as just chatting it up with me, I'm on Threads way more than I should be. I think that's how I came across you on
Yeah.
Threads. I think so. Instagram, same handle, but really just um, if you have Kindle Limit, it costs really nothing to check out the work. And let me know your thoughts. If you do like it, please let me know. If you don't like it, don't let me know. um,
Right? You keep
yeah,
that to yourself. That's
no,
fine.
don't be tagging me if you don't like it. But
Right. And then also probably reviews as well. So if you did
yes,
enjoy it, reviewing it so that way other people get encouraged to read as well.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I do have a mailing list. I need to double check to make sure everything's good because my site just got a whole revamp. But I'm forever giving away early copies or letting people have it like a few days before it goes on Amazon and stuff like that. So for people who really want to support, I appreciate it. That's kind of my way of saying thank you,
Mhm.
by saying here it is a week or two early.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well,
That's great. And then where can folks find you on the internet if they want to connect with you?
it's my website is my whole name, CherilNClarke.com. Cheryl spelled with an I, my parents. Cheril N for Nicole, Clarke. My social media is Cheryl_Nicole. Pretty much the same on Instagram and Threads. And that's the best way to get me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you to all of them. I don't think there's anybody else who spells their first name like mine. So yeah, yeah.
Yes, I understand that. I think I've only ran into a few Chalons, so I
Yeah.
understand the having a unique first name spelling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I
Well,
love it though. That's how, I mean,
yeah.
it's just one last random tidbit. Um, the character Fetlin was actually, I changed the spelling. but was named after some random Uber driver that I had. Like I heard the name, I was
Ah.
like, that is such a pretty name. I
Mhm.
was actually I was going home. I was going to Miami. I was hopped in an Uber from the airport and I'm chatting it up with this lady. And I just was stuck on the name. So I said, all right, I'm going to completely change the spelling, but I want it to phonetically sound the same. And
Mm.
that's how I named that character.
Oh, that's that's a cool tidbit.
So random.
Well, inspiration can come anywhere,
It's
so
so random. And yeah, because of what she did for a living, of course, I was like, I'm not spelling it the same. But it
yeah.
just, I don't know. I just like the way it sounded. So yeah,
Mhm. I love
yeah.
that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great to have this chat with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. See you.